The young elf's hands trembled as he held the crystal pendant, its ancient facets catching the trading hall's light. Rose watched from her usual corner as 3 merchant princes circled their prey. "Such a crude piece," the first merchant said, his silk robes rustling. "Hardly worth your asking price." "But it's been in my family for generations," the elf protested weakly. "My mother said—" "Your mother clearly didn't understand its true value," the second merchant cut in. "We're being generous offering anything at all." Rose recognized the pendant's style. Similar pieces had been traded in Eldermire for small fortunes. These merchants were trying to rob the boy blind. She also knew something else about these particular merchants, something she'd overheard last week about their less-than-legal shipping practices. "Perhaps," she said, stepping from the shadows, "we should discuss the true value of things, like the contents of your last 3 shipments through the Eastern Gate." The merchant princes turned, their confident smirks faltering as they recognized her. Not by name, Rose had ensured few knew that, but by reputation. The shadow observer who seemed to know everyone's secrets. "This is a private transaction," the lead merchant said, though his voice lacked conviction. "Is it?" Rose moved closer, her voice carrying just far enough for nearby traders to pause and listen. "Like your private arrangement with the Smugglers' Guild, the one that bypasses Concordia's tariffs." The young elf watched wide-eyed as the merchants' faces paled. "The pendant," Rose continued, "is worth at least 10 times your generous offer. If you disagree, perhaps we should consult the Council's trade regulators about fair market values, among other things." "This is harassment," the second merchant hissed, but they were already backing away. Rose turned to the young elf. "I believe there are some reputable jewelers in the Western Quarter who would give you a fair price." From across the trading hall, Master Chen watched the exchange with growing interest. He'd spent 40 years studying the art of negotiation, and what he'd just witnessed was elegant. The girl had dismantled 3 experienced merchants without raising her voice or making a single direct threat. The young elf clutched his pendant, looking up at Rose. "Thank you. I didn't know what to do." "Knowledge is valuable," Rose said quietly. "Remember that." As the elf hurried away, Master Chen approached, his silk robes whispering against the marble floor. "An impressive display of leverage," he said, his accent marking him as from the far eastern realms. "You understand the true currency of Concordia." Rose turned, studying the old merchant. She'd watched him negotiate deals that seemed impossible, turning situations to his advantage with nothing but carefully chosen words. "Information is worth more than gold," she replied, "if you know how to spend it." "Walk with me," Master Chen said, gesturing toward the quieter alcoves of the trading hall. "Your intervention was instructive. You understand the delicate balance of power and information." Rose fell into step beside him, noting how other merchants bowed subtly as they passed. "I observe." "Ah, but observation without application is merely watching. You," he smiled slightly, "you understand how to use what you see." He paused near a window overlooking the market below. "I could teach you more." "At what price?" Rose asked directly. His smile widened. "Your first lesson, free of charge. Nothing of value is truly free. My knowledge for, shall we say, a favor to be named later." Rose studied him carefully. "And what guarantee do I have that this favor won't exceed the value of your teachings?" "Another lesson, also free. The best guarantees are mutual benefit." He turned to face her fully. "I've watched you watching others. You hunger for knowledge. I hunger for someone worthy to teach." "And what makes you think I'm worthy?" Rose asked, testing his response. "You demonstrated 3 key qualities today," Master Chen replied. "Patience to gather information, wisdom to know its worth, skill to apply it precisely." He gestured to the trading floor below. "These merchants deal in goods. You and I, we deal in something far more valuable. And this favor you'd want in return? Nothing that would compromise your principles. His eyes glinted. Consider it an investment in both our futures. After all, those who control information control everything else, Rose finished. Precisely. He produced a small token marked with his house seal. Tomorrow, before the morning trades begin, we'll start with the art of reading people's true intentions. Rose took the token, feeling its weight. It wasn't just a pass to his trading house. It was a key to knowledge she desperately wanted. But accepting meant owing a debt to someone she barely knew. Then again, that was exactly the kind of calculated risk he might be testing her on. One condition, Rose said, rolling the token between her fingers. The favor you ask cannot involve betraying those under my protection. Master Chen's eyes sparkled with approval. Lesson 3. Also free. Always define your terms before agreeing. He inclined his head slightly. I accept your condition. Those you protect remain protected. Rose tucked the token away. Then we have an arrangement. Indeed. He turned to leave, then paused. One last observation. Those merchant princes you confronted, they'll seek revenge for their humiliation. I'm counting on it, Rose replied quietly. Master Chen's laugh was barely more than a whisper. Yes, I believe you are. He gestured to the token. Tomorrow, then. And Rose? His expression grew serious. Don't be late. Time, like information, once lost, cannot be recovered. Rose arrived at Master Chen's trading house before dawn. The building was elegant, but understated, exactly the kind of place people might overlook while seeking power. A servant led her to a small room overlooking the main trading floor. Master Chen sat at a low table, arranging tiles in an intricate pattern. Sit, he said without looking up. Watch the merchants below as they arrive. Tell me what you see. Rose settled across from him, observing as early traders began filtering in. The spice merchant in blue is worried. He keeps touching his coin purse. The woman in red silk isn't really here to trade. She's watching someone. And the dwarf by the eastern door. No, Master Chen interrupted softly. Don't tell me what they're doing. Tell me what they're hiding. Rose paused, adjusting her perspective. The spice merchant isn't worried about money. He's checking something inside his purse. A message, probably. The woman in red? She's pretending to be obvious about watching someone, but her real target is elsewhere. Master Chen smiled. Now you're beginning to see. Every movement tells a story, Master Chen continued, his eyes still on the trading floor. The way they hold themselves, where their eyes linger, what they pretend not to notice. He gestured to a merchant entering the hall. Watch him. The merchant moved confidently through the crowd, stopping to chat with various traders. His manner was easy, relaxed. He's not here to trade, Rose said after a moment. How do you know? His hands never stray to his money pouch. He's not carrying any samples. And he's talking to competitors who should be avoiding each other. Good. What else? Rose studied the merchant more closely. He's gathering information. Each group he speaks to, they're all connected to the silver trade. Excellent. Master Chen poured 2 cups of tea. Now, why would someone want to know about silver trading patterns? Because they're planning to flood the market, Rose realized. Drive prices down before making a major purchase. Power isn't in knowing secrets, Master Chen said, sipping his tea. It's in understanding which secrets matter and when to use them. Below, the trading floor had filled with merchants and dealers. Rose watched their intricate dance of commerce with new eyes, seeing beyond the surface transactions. The trick, Master Chen continued, is to gather information that creates options. The silver trade manipulation? Let it play out. Watch who benefits, who loses. That knowledge becomes leverage for future negotiations. And those who are hurt by it? Rose asked, thinking of the young elf she'd helped. Another lesson. Sometimes allowing small injuries prevents greater ones. He studied her reaction. But I sense you've learned that lesson already, haven't you? Rose thought of Eldermeyer, of choices made and prices paid. Yes. Enough for today, Master Chen said, rising. Tomorrow we'll discuss the art of making others reveal their secrets while keeping our own. As Rose left the trading house, she realized she'd learned more than just observation techniques. She'd glimpsed a whole new way of wielding power, subtle, patient, and far more effective than fire. Silas sat in a quiet corner of the Enforcer's Hall, listening to travelers from the Umbral Realm discuss recent events. His new observation skills, learned from Rose, made him catch details he might have missed before. The Order's fortress, completely destroyed, nothing left but ash and molten stone, one traveller said. They say it was one of their own who did it. A fire mage they tried to control. And Eldermeyer, another added, lowering his voice. You heard what happened there? The portal master dead, his son's face half torn away by wild magic. The whole place collapsed into ruin. Silas kept his expression neutral even as his mind raced. The timing matched perfectly. Rose's arrival threw what had seemed like a tear in reality. Her burns, her knowledge of portal magic. They say the fire mage was young, beautiful, but deadly, left nothing but destruction in her wake. Silas thought of Rose, of how she kept to the shadows, of her deep understanding of both fire and portal magic, of her nightmares that sometimes echoed through the Enforcer's quarters. He would keep her secrets. After all, she had chosen to use her power to protect Concordia rather than destroy it. That was all he needed to know. The morning sun hadn't yet touched Concordia's trading halls when Rose arrived for her lesson. Master Chen was at his usual table, but today it held no tiles or tea, only a leather-bound ledger. You've mastered basic observation, he said as she took her seat. Now we discuss something more valuable, acquiring the right clients. And what makes a client right? Rose asked. That depends entirely on your goals. He opened the ledger. Some seek wealth, others power. The wisest seek those who can offer both. But first, he looked up at her with knowing eyes. What do you seek? Rose considered her answer carefully. After Eldermeyer, after the Order, what she wanted most was control, the ability to never be powerless again. Master Chen's smile was approving. Then let me teach you how to build a network that ensures exactly that. Watch, Master Chen instructed, gesturing to a wealthy merchant entering the hall below. What do you see? Fine clothes, multiple bodyguards. Carries himself like nobility, Rose observed. And what does he need? Rose studied the merchant more carefully. His guards are too obvious. He's showing his wealth and power because he's insecure about it. He needs legitimacy, acceptance among the older trading houses. Good. Now, how would you acquire him as a client? Offer him information about the established houses? Ways to gain their respect? Master Chen shook his head slightly. You're thinking like a merchant. Think like someone who deals in power. Don't offer him what he wants. Show him what he could lose without your protection. Create the need, Rose said slowly, understanding. Let him see the advantages of having me as an ally before he realizes he needs one. The secret, Master Chen continued, is to make them come to you. Watch their patterns, learn their vulnerabilities, then be conveniently present when those vulnerabilities become pressing. Rose thought of how she'd handled the merchant princes threatening the young elf. Like being in the right place at the right time with the right information. Precisely. But remember, your first client defines your reputation. He pointed to another figure in the trading hall. The woman in green silk. Tell me how you would acquire her as a client. Rose studied the woman's movements, her interactions. She's respected, but not wealthy. Other merchants defer to her, but not out of fear. She trades in information herself. Very good. And she would be a valuable first client because her respect would transfer to me. Others would assume I'm trustworthy if she trusts me. Master Chen smiled. Now you're thinking like someone who deals in power. It's time for practical application, Master Chen said, closing his ledger. The merchant in blue by the eastern pillar. He's been watching the spice traders all morning. Rose studied her target. He's nervous, keeps checking a document in his sleeve. He received news this morning that could ruin 3 major spice houses. Master Chen's eyes gleamed. News he doesn't fully understand how to use. You want me to acquire him as a client? I want you to show me you understand today's lesson. He gestured to the trading floor. Remember, don't offer help. Make him see why he needs it. Rose stood, mentally preparing herself. And if I succeed? Then we'll discuss more advanced lessons. Master Chen's smile was knowing. After all, acquiring clients is one thing. Keeping them, that's quite another. Rose made her way to the trading floor, moving with purposeful grace through the morning crowd. She positioned herself near the merchant in blue, pretending to examine goods at a nearby stall while watching his movements. His hands shook slightly as he read the document again. When one of the spice merchants approached, he quickly tucked it away, his attempt at casual conversation strained. Rose waited until he'd moved away from the crowd before speaking. It's interesting, isn't it? She said softly, not looking directly at him. How the eastern spice routes have changed recently. The merchant stiffened. I don't know what you mean. No? Rose examined a piece of silk, her voice carefully neutral. Then I suppose you wouldn't be interested in knowing which of the spice houses is actually vulnerable, and which is setting a trap. He turned toward her sharply. A trap? Information is a dangerous commodity, she said, finally meeting his eyes. Especially when you don't know all the players involved. The merchant glanced around nervously before stepping closer. What do you know about the spice houses? I know many things, Rose replied, keeping her voice low. Including why Merchant Kane has been meeting secretly with enforcers after dark. She saw the colour drain from his face. And why that document you're carrying could be worth a fortune, or cost you everything. How did you... He stopped himself, looking at her with new eyes. Who are you? Someone who understands the true value of information. Rose turned as if to leave. Good luck with your decision. I hope you choose the right spice house to approach. Wait, he called softly, exactly as she'd expected. Perhaps we could discuss this further. Rose paused, glancing up at where she knew Master Chen was watching. Perhaps we could, but not here. And not without arrangements. What kind of arrangements? The merchant asked, his earlier nervousness replaced by keen interest. The kind that ensures mutual benefit, Rose said, using Master Chen's phrasing. Information requires protection, as do those who trade in it. She could see him calculating, weighing risks against potential rewards. The document in his sleeve felt heavier with each moment of silence. The Silver Swan, he said finally, naming one of Concordia's more exclusive establishments. This evening? No. Rose kept her voice firm. You'll come to the East Garden at sunset. Alone. Then we'll discuss terms. She turned to leave, then added over her shoulder, and leave that document somewhere safe. You wouldn't want it falling into the wrong hands before we talk. As she made her way back to Master Chen's observation room, she could feel the merchant's eyes following her. The first thread of her own network was about to be spun. Master Chen was waiting, a pot of fresh tea steaming between 2 cups. Tell me, he said as Rose took her seat, what did you learn? That fear and greed are powerful motivators, Rose replied, accepting the offered tea. But hope might be the strongest. Explain. He was afraid of making the wrong choice, greedy for the profit his information could bring. She sipped her tea thoughtfully. But what really caught him was the hope of being more than just another merchant, of being someone who understands the deeper games being played. Master Chen's eyes glittered with approval, And your choice of meeting place? The East Garden is public enough to make him feel safe but quiet enough for private conversation, and making him come to me establishes the power dynamic, Master Chen finished. Very good. Though I noticed something else you did, perhaps without realizing. Oh? You made him protect his own information before meeting you. Now he's invested in the outcome. Clever. The East Garden was quiet at sunset, its carefully maintained paths empty except for a few wandering scholars. Rose chose her position carefully, a stone bench that gave her clear views of all approaches while keeping her back protected by a flowering wall. The merchant arrived exactly on time, trying to appear casual as he scanned the garden. Rose let him search for a moment, letting him feel the subtle power dynamic of having to find her. "You came alone," she said quietly as he approached. Not a question. She'd been watching all possible approaches for the past hour. As requested, he settled onto the bench, maintaining a respectful distance. Though I admit this is unusual. Information thrives in unusual places, Rose replied. Now tell me what you think you know about the spice houses. Shouldn't we discuss terms first? We already are. She turned to face him fully. Every word you speak helps determine your value as a client. The merchant hesitated, then seemed to come to a decision. 3 major spice houses are involved in price fixing. I have proof. Incorrect, Rose said softly. 2 houses are involved in price fixing. The 3rd is working with the Trade Council to expose them. Your proof, she paused deliberately, would implicate you as an accessory if taken to the wrong people. His face paled. How did you... No. The same way I know that Merchant Kane isn't meeting with enforcers. He's meeting with council investigators. The same way I know your document came from a source trying to manipulate you into making a very costly mistake. She let that sink in for a moment before continuing. The question isn't what you know. It's what you're going to do with that knowledge. What would you suggest? He asked, his voice slightly hoarse. That depends on our arrangement. Rose kept her voice neutral. Information can be a weapon or a shield. I'm offering you the chance to learn which is which. My terms are simple, Rose said, watching the last rays of sunlight fade from the garden. I provide you with context for your information. What's real? What's manipulation? Who's involved? In return, you become part of my network. Your network? You'll share what you learn, what you hear. Not everything, just what I specify, and in return you'll have my protection. Protection? He shifted uneasily. From what? From making mistakes like the one you almost made today. Rose turned to face him fully. Think carefully before you answer. This offer comes once. After tonight, your choices become much more limited. She could see him processing the implications, both of accepting and refusing. The garden had grown darker, making her next words seem more weighted. Consider this. By this time tomorrow, the Spice House scandal will break. The question is whether you'll be safely on the right side of it, or scrambling to explain your involvement. How would this work, he asked finally. In practice? You'll receive messages when I need information about specific matters. You'll have ways to contact me when you discover something significant. Rose's voice remained calm, matter of fact. In return, you'll receive warnings about matters that could affect your interests. And my current situation? By morning, your document will be worthless, evidence of a failed plot rather than proof of corruption. Unless... She let the word hang in the air. Unless you agree to my terms now, then it becomes something else entirely. Proof that you helped expose a conspiracy. Your reputation would benefit considerably. He exhaled slowly, then nodded. It seems I don't have much choice. You always have a choice, Rose corrected. I'm simply helping you make the profitable one. If we're to work together, Rose said, producing a small token similar to the one Master Chen had given her, you'll need to understand the rules. Rules? He took the token, examining its subtle markings. 3 simple ones. First, our arrangement remains private. Second, you verify any information before passing it to me. I don't deal in rumors. Third, she paused meaningfully, you never try to discover more about me than I choose to reveal. And if I break these rules? Then our arrangement ends, along with any protection it provides. She stood smoothly. Your first task is to take your document to Council Member Wei tomorrow morning. He'll be expecting you. The merchant clutched the token. How will I contact you? Show the token to the tea merchant in the West Market. She'll know how to reach me. Rose started to walk away, then paused. Oh, and Harrison? Choose your next business partners more carefully. Not everyone offers second chances. His surprise at her knowing his name was the last thing she saw as she melted into the garden's deepening shadows. Master Chen was waiting in his private study when Rose returned. A single candle burned between 2 cups of fresh tea. He accepted, Rose said, taking her seat. Of course he did. Master Chen's eyes gleamed in the candlelight. You gave him no other viable choice. Though I noticed something interesting about your approach. Oh. You offered him redemption, not just protection, a chance to transform his mistake into an advantage. He sipped his tea thoughtfully. Most in our profession would have simply used his fear. Fear makes people unpredictable, Rose replied, thinking of Eldermeyer. Give them a path to profit and power, and they'll walk it willingly. Very good, Master Chen set down his cup. You've acquired your first client. Now comes the harder lesson, managing him without letting him realize he's being managed. Managing clients, Master Chen began, is like tending a garden. Too much attention suffocates them. Too little and they grow wild. He produced a second ledger, older and more worn than the first. Each client needs something different. Harrison, for instance. What does he truly need from you? Rose considered carefully. Validation. He wants to feel like an insider, someone who understands the deeper games. If I give him that illusion? While keeping him just uncertain enough to remain dependent on your guidance, Master Chen finished. Good. But remember, a client who feels too controlled will rebel. So how do I maintain the balance? By making them think they're choosing their own path. He opened the ledger, revealing intricate notes about various traders and nobles. Watch how they move, what they value, then simply ensure their chosen path aligns with your interests. For example, Master Chen drew her attention to the trading floor below, the spice merchant who's been watching Harrison all morning. What do you see? Rose studied the figure carefully. He's trying to appear casual, but he's too interested in Harrison's movements. He knows about the document. And how will you use this? Let Harrison notice the attention, Rose said slowly. It will reinforce that he needs my protection. But also, she paused, thinking it through. Arrange for the spice merchant to receive a subtle warning. Show Harrison my influence extends beyond just him. Master Chen's smile was approving. Now you begin to understand. Information flows in many directions. The art is in controlling those flows without appearing to do so. Like moving pieces on a game board without letting anyone see your hand. Precisely. Though remember, pieces that know they're being moved become resistant. Rose returned to her quarters to find Silas waiting, a bottle of Shadowvine vintage on the table between 2 crystal glasses. Even from the doorway, she recognized it as one of the most expensive wines in Concordia. Celebrating something, she asked, though his proud bearing told her the answer. They promoted me to senior enforcer today. His massive frame seemed to fill the room, but his smile was gentle, because of the tunnel plot we uncovered, though we both know who really deserves the credit. You did the work, Rose said, settling into her chair as he poured the wine. You presented the evidence, led the teams. Because you taught me to see what others missed. He handed her a glass, the crystal looking delicate in his large hands. You taught me to observe, to piece things together. This promotion, it's as much yours as mine. Rose took a sip, letting the complex flavors play across her tongue. You chose well, she said, indicating the wine. This isn't easy to acquire. I'm learning, he replied softly, his eyes holding something deeper than just gratitude. It suits you, you know, Rose said after a comfortable silence. The promotion, the respect you've earned. Funny. Silas swirled his wine thoughtfully. When I first became an enforcer, I thought strength was all that mattered. Now I understand there are different kinds of strength. Rose studied him over the rim of her glass. Like knowing when not to ask certain questions? His eyes met hers, understanding passing between them. Like knowing some secrets are better kept than shared. She felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the wine. Silas had learned more than just observation. He'd learned discretion. The unspoken knowledge of her past hung between them, not as a barrier but as a mark of trust. To new positions, she raised her glass. And old friends? To teachers, he countered softly, and those who remind us there's always more to learn. They shared the wine as night settled over Concordia, their conversation flowing as easily as the vintage. Rose found herself relaxing in a way she rarely did anymore, appreciating the simple comfort of trusted company. Master Chen would approve of your choice, she said, examining the nearly empty bottle. He says wine, like information, reveals its true nature over time. Silas smiled. And what does this wine reveal? That you've learned to appreciate quality. She set down her glass. And that you understand the value of patience. I had a good teacher. His voice carried warmth and something else, that unspoken depth of feeling he never quite expressed. As moonlight filtered through the window, Rose reflected on how far they'd both come. She, learning to wield information as skillfully as fire, and Silas, growing into someone whose strength lay in knowing when not to use it. The night grew late, and tomorrow would bring new lessons, new clients, new challenges. But for now, in this quiet moment with her most trusted ally, Rose allowed herself to feel something close to peace. The Spice House scandal broke exactly as Rose had predicted. Harrison's evidence, presented to council member Wei, exposed the price-fixing scheme while painting him as a concerned citizen. His reputation grew, while Rose's invisible hand in the matter went unnoticed, exactly as she'd planned. Word spread quietly through Concordia's trading halls, whispers of someone who could turn liability into advantage, threat into opportunity. Rose's network grew, each client carefully chosen, each connection strengthening her position while maintaining her anonymity. Master Chen watched his students rise with approval, though his lessons never ceased. Power, he would remind her, is in making them need you while never letting them truly know you.
Well, you found your way to the end, haven't you? That must mean you're curious, and we love curiosity around here. Before you vanish into the ether, take a moment to subscribe. It's just a click, and trust me, you'll want to stay in the loop for what comes next. And while you're at it, give the video a like. The energy exchange is good for you. Hit that notification bell too. You wouldn't want to miss out on any of our magical misadventures. Who knows what I might conjure up next? Alright, off you go. But remember, I'll know if you didn't subscribe. See you on the other side.